Alconbury Weald is a really fascinating project for us because it has all of the kind of core elements that our strategic developers were really interested in. It's a massive site, 575 hectares, over 1,400 acres. Being a former airfield site, it has a tremendous amount of space around it, and that's something that we're really keen is maintained throughout the life of the development and its new guise. So having half of the site as open green space as a backdrop to both the housing and the business space is really key to what Alconbury Weald is all about. The site's incredibly well connected. It basically sits on the north-south transport spine of the country. It's got the A1 one side of it and the East Coast Main Line the other. And it's got the A14, the main east-west transport route as well, runs alongside the site. So it's really one of the best connected sites in the country. So overall, Alconbury Weald will take about 20 years to develop in total. And that will be to deliver 5,000 homes and 3 million square feet of commercial space. But we're breaking that down into phases as well. A lot of the work so far has been early investment and early preparation on the infrastructure going in to get ready for that development. So far, probably about 25 million has been invested in 2 new entrances and in some of the water and power and digital connections going into the site, and also in building our incubator building as well, which has been an important flagship for us to set the tone for the quality design and landscape and to get businesses up here. There's an awful lot of work going on at the moment that's on demolition and infrastructure elements. So we've broken down such a big site into 70 acres of enterprise zone. And the first phase of work was around pulling down some of the buildings that were unused, many of them not in particularly good condition. So we've so far pulled down about 30 or so of those. And we're just removing the hard standing, of which there is hundreds of thousands of tons of concrete for all of the hard standing and roads that were here, often put down in a hurry during different heights of the Cold War and things like that. One of our aspirations has always been to make as much possible to reuse and recycle the materials that we're able to pull up through this work. We've set our contractors a target of 97% use of recycling, and a lot of the concrete that is coming up is actually quite high grade. So engineers get very excited about the fact that it is aviation grade, high level concrete, which means you can reuse and recycle a high percentage of it. So we've got a lot of crushers on site at the moment who are going through the process, sorting it all out, grading out the different aspects. So we want to make as much use as possible of what we've got on site and take as little as possible off-site for landfill. This is a unique site, mostly because, as well as the Second World War elements, it did have this unique reconnaissance role around the Cold War and was the only UK base for the U-2 spy plane. So a lot of the heritage aspects that are really important to partners and to us relate to that Cold War use. We've got 4 listed buildings on site. 3 relate to the U2, the avionics building, which is unique in Europe, and 2 of our 4 series hangars, which house the U2. And we also have a Second World War watchtower. And some of the work that we've been doing has actually been to create the historic setting around the Second World War watchtower, because it was crammed in rather by sort of 70s and 80s military builds. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to keep all of the buildings that we wanted to on the heritage side. Obviously, some of them were put up very quickly. A lot were using materials, a lot of asbestos and things that we aren't particularly things that you want around anymore. One of the buildings that unfortunately had to come down was the parachute drying tower. It was right in the wrong place for road movements, and while we looked at whether you could move it, it just wasn't substantial enough to be able to do that, and it had some pretty nasty stuff in there. So we recorded every inch of it that we could, and had to bring it down. This is a really interesting site in that at the moment there's not a lot of trees here. And a lot of the trees that are here are quite good quality but completely in the wrong place, because they've normally been used for shielding wind across the runways. So as well as bringing in some large trees, we are growing our own on a community tree nursery on the site, which is great, but they're all quite small. So we're also moving some of the bigger trees that are on site over to where we need them to be, and to form part of a proper landscaping strategy. That's been quite fun because they are big trees, and it's involved us bringing in one of the biggest pieces of kit in Europe that can actually translocate, as they call these trees, from where they are into their new home whilst maintaining the root balls so that they maintain the healthy tree. So we have had some bizarre scenes of trees being lifted and moved across the site, marching across to their new homes, which has been enormous fun to see, but also incredible that you have these machines, the biggest in Europe, being brought into the country just to help us with that.